So welcome to the new alignment paradigm. As you've noticed, we work in the functional approach with a different view on what poses should look like. There are no shoulds, and we don't worry about what poses look like directly. So a lot of the practices that nowadays are being taught of yoga and alignment rules that are being taught are most of the time aesthetic based, or as we also refer to, fear of God based. And that is, this is going to injure you. But in biomechanics, we understand the movement of the body as a movement that comes from the joints. So that's why the joints and the skeleton are an important aspect to understanding the poses. And from there, we're not too worried about what the pose looks like, as long as certain indicators are in place of that pose is okay for this certain body type. So this marks a difference in and of itself. And then the phrase of we are all different. Yes, we are all different, but it is also important to know how we are all different. So we'll look at that as well here, understanding in a presentation further ahead what stops you in a pose. And that has also to do here with something I'm going to start to introduce today, which has to do with the joint movement, but also the range of motion. So ROM, you'll see that written mostly as ROM, the end range of motion, how that is so different from one person to another, just based on the fact that our bones are very different. And that bone structure doesn't change. So that bone structure in itself already has a certain limit to how far we can, for example, externally rotate or internally rotate. The 14 skeletal segments as a part to this understanding, skeletal variation and this understanding of the joints. It is a way of abbreviating the synovial joints of the body. So the synovial joints of your body are the ones that have the most movement. And this is just one way of abbreviating, 14 skeletal segments. So we think of it as a little dance. So we think the toes and the talus, the tibia, the femur, the pelvis, the lumbar vertebrae, the thoracic vertebrae, cervical vertebrae, your fingers, your wrists, your radius, your ulna, your humerus, and your scapular movement. So this is in a pose. All of these movements are moving in different ways depending on the pose. And of course, depending on the target area, then we're looking for a specific movement that creates tension in that muscle group. And tension, remember tension in the terms of stretch in that muscle group. So this is really what the new alignment paradigm is about. Understanding this, and also even from a step prior to, our bones are different, and this creates differences in how we look in the poses, not only because of ROM, but also because of proportion or orientation. For example, the orientation of the acetabulum is a really big one in how comfortably we position our legs in certain poses, but also from a perspective of your joints in themselves already have the movements that they have. So in reference to the ulna and the humerus, that's flexion and extension. As much as you would like to extend more, there is a point where, this is one of the easiest ones to feel compression in, there's a point where you cannot extend your arm anymore. And this will vary from one person to another. It's why sometimes you see the arm slightly moving down, and people tend to call that a hyperextension. So that is just based on how that joint is made, that bone is made, it has a deeper groove in it, and that allows more movement. But this in itself, if I wanted to try and do a yoga pose that would bring my hand to my armpit, it would not be possible. As much as I would work on this every day I'd put weights here and I just let the weights, bring my arm further down, or what I think would be further down. That joint is not going to change. That joint is meant to do that movement. The weight's meant to do it, and according to my body type. So the joints have a set range of motion in them, and that cannot be changed in and of itself. Then what is the end range of motion? We have to work through tension sometimes. So we have to work through the tissues sometimes. Since yesterday's, the first anatomy pill was issues in our tissues. So we have to understand that aspect of what we're working through. And there is tension. But for example, in this very easy example, if I cannot lower my arm more, I wouldn't directly say, okay, it's got to be compression. That's it. Forget it. Don't ever do this pose. I would understand that if it was tension, the feeling would be at the opposite area of where the compression is. The compression would be here, and then the tension, you'd feel it up here. So tension, compression, they're both a part of how we bring together understanding the functional approach. And then there's skeletal variation as well, which is our bones are different. So the range of motion that my body needs might be different than yours. Our proportions are different. So my pose is actually going to look different than yours. And from there, we can really start to celebrate our differences in the yoga asana practice. I look forward to teaching you more about the 5 archetypal poses tomorrow. Thank you for your attention. Namaste.